Hi, this is Kim Watson. Welcome to a weekly outlook. Okay, quite a bit to talk about this morning, so here we go. I'm going to start off looking very briefly at the key news events this week first. Let's just whoops, bring the right one up. There we go. I'm just going to run through this briefly, as I said. So we've got nothing out today, Monday the 12th, but tomorrow 13th we've got some significant news starts coming out, particularly in the we've got the for the UK, the annual budget release. We already know borrowing's dropping a little bit there. I don't think there'll be too many surprises there by the sounds of things. They're trying to play it down a little bit, maybe. The autumn budget's much more important, but regardless, we will obviously get a statement. So that's at 11:30. It could, of course, create volatility with the pound, and you need to watch that carefully tomorrow morning there. Okay, leading through then, and we've got US data coming out. Remember the times, the clocks have changed in the US, and they're already on daylight saving, so it's going to be an hour earlier, so 12:30. There's data come out there, very key. The inflation data at the moment for the US, it's been trickling along. They want to see some inflation pickup. This really may decide whether we get 3 or 4 interest rate increases coming out this year. If this isn't really picking up too much, then there could be problems ahead, as they say. So very key there. Beyond that, we've got the Bank of Canadian governor speaking there. Due to speak titled Today's Labour Market. Okay, we won't bother with that. Moving on. There's ECB Draghi speaking 8 o'clock on Wednesday morning. This isn't a it's just a speech hosted by the Institute of Monetary and Financial Stability in Frankfurt. There may create volatility, although he should be really saying too much out of turn from what he mentioned last week, or the week before. It was last week. Goodness, it seems to fly past, doesn't it, when you're having fun? And then we got the core retail sales in the US again, 12:30. Again, core retail sales very important. This is a sort of leading indicator in terms of consumer-driven inflation, etc. The potential of coming through. So core retail sales will be watched very closely. So that really, I've covered the 2 main events for this coming week there. The rest is all really shady. All inventories doesn't really do too much. PPI maybe, but create a little bit of fuss. But it's really down to the CPI itself. So it's another inflation measure. It's not going to do too much there, I don't think. So all in all, and the rest of the week, manufacturing, etc., building permits. I don't know why they colour it red. It's probably run out of ink when it came to yellow. Anyway. And the capacity utilization, industrial production, at this point they are not big movers in general state. So there we go. That's where we are with that. So I'll pull that out of the way, and then we're going to have a look at the technicals along with some institutional sentiment as well. So starting off then with the weeklies on the euro here. Now we're seeing we've sort of chopping around at this point here. It is quite key to see whether we can actually the euro can hold on to gains. Draghi did hint that he was particularly a bit concerned of the strong euro, so we'll see how that comes through into the markets. But technically, just as we're sitting at the moment, shooting sign to last week, close last week, from a weekly perspective. At the moment, we're dropping down on the dailies here a little bit. We've tested this daily 50, which is below us already. Again, it got retested on Friday, previously tested. So I would expect now it's being tested a bit more frequently. We could see a breakdown of this, and I would be looking on the shorter side on the euro, maybe back towards its monthly S1, maybe more. We'll see how it rolls over. Particularly a key area to watch out for is the trend line that sits at the lows here. If it starts making its way down to there, watch out in case we still do see a bit of buying coming in at that point. But really, it will have made a lower high again, and it would signify possibly more weakness. Of course, as we run through the week, it may just stay in a bit of a range bound. And as I said already, the key news that's out on Tuesday and Wednesday may really push it in one direction or the other more significantly. Okay, from a sentiment point of view, I thought I'd just look at this, looking at the commitment of traders on the euro. It is slipping back a bit now. The numbers are slipping back. The long positions, net long positions, dropping off there, which may suggest it's on a bit of a turn. Certainly stalled overall and lower than it has been for a few weeks. So maybe the sentiment's falling away. Okay, let's have a look at the pound. Technically, let's have a look from the weekly perspective first here, and it's held up relatively well. And again, we've got the budget this week. Whether that will help it or not, I would expect it generally will stay somewhere aligned to the euro. We've got two key areas already marked on my daily chart here. These green trend lines here that I've popped on there, and we really are getting pinched in the middle here, aren't we? So maybe there's for the short-term traders, they'll be looking at the lows from this 1st of March low and the more recent lows there, and looking for breaks of those. At the moment, it's erring on the weaker side. Maybe we've already got on this from this daily picture lower highs and lower lows, so we may just, as with the euro, see a bit more of a rollover. Possible, certainly. I'm looking here. If it does start rolling over, breaking again, watch the near-term trend line. That there are a couple of others which may be a little bit steeper from these lows here, but anyway, if it starts breaking through that area, looking again towards the daily 100 there and the previous highs here, so it may be a draw for it down to this area. In terms of sentiment, let's just have a look at sentiment on here. Sorry, clicked the wrong thing. And sentiment again, look, it's just it's coming out of this coming out of here, it's just dropping down. It's very flat here. We had a bit of a bullish sort of stance taken by the as I say, the more significant traders. That seems to have certainly eased off, and we could be switching into negative territory, which would sort of agree with the thoughts of a more of a rollover. Okay, dollar yen. Now, this is a more difficult one. Has been lately, just purely on the basis of the yen is become for some time now the safety vehicle, and it's a high volume currency, so it's a little bit safer to use it as a safety currency as opposed to maybe the Swissy. So excuse me. What we're looking from the weekly point of view here. It's been breaking through the lows here. It's looking like to me like it might be trying to put in some sort of bottom. We had something last week. Yeah, it must have been last week or the week before. We had a bit of a divergence crossing into the lows here, and we've seen it pitch up. And I'm really looking to see if it can push on any further. Maybe back eventually towards that monthly pivot on onwards. Now we're already on this significant trend line, and we didn't get. If we were going to get something more of a sell-off, I would have expected it to be coming as we were running into that. But at the moment, from a fundamental point of view, if it's being used as a safety tool, then we'd expect to see it selling off. With the situation with North Korea, South Korea, and the potential talks there, that seems to be more positive for the markets. Also, we've got more positive stance maybe on the tariffs, etc., from the US. So overall, that may just take the risk away from the markets a little bit more, and it gives the yen potential to push up, as I say, towards that monthly pivot, maybe beyond that, if we can get the momentum in there. From a sentiment point of view, well, it's easing off here. I wouldn't say it's pulling off in a significant rate here, but it has eased off, which would, I mean, bear in mind this is inverted, I should say, on this figure here. We've got in terms of some minus numbers here, so it's becoming dollar stronger, if you like. So I would expect on that basis from more upside. Okay. Aussie dollar. Let's look at the big picture first here and what we're seeing. So it's done pretty well. Again, it may do a little bit better now. Discussions of tariffs are off the table somewhat. However, has just gone into its weekly weekly 8 there, which is turning around quite sharply. We've sold off, made a lower high on the dailies, certainly cleared lower high on the dailies there, and it's whether it rolls from at this sort of point. Sentiment on the Aussie dollar. Let me just bring that into play. Sorry. Sentiment on the Aussie dollar. Where is it? It's the first one. It begins with A. That always helps, doesn't it? So sentiment, as you can see, has been sliding off there, sliding downwards, which suggests when you get across, you tend to get a bit more of a kicker. So we may see more of a sell-off coming through here. As I said, it has been helped and maybe helped a little bit more with the tariffs coming off of things, or not being quite so harshly approached, maybe, or an approach to the tariffs being softer, should I say. But anyway, we'll see how it runs, but always a bit iffy at times. Finally, the Canadian dollar, looking from a weekly period here. And you see, last week we actually put a shooting star on the Canadian dollar. It did break those prior highs there, and it's quite a significant point, that break. So that was quite significant early in the week, ran up there. It pulled back towards its weekly pivot. It's now pushing up towards its new weekly pivot by the looks of things, although again we've got a daily 8 in the way at the moment. But there is the potential for further upside on here. Of course, it's been quite a steep bank here. I would obviously be looking, I say obviously, but I would be looking at the potential. Let me just get a trend line if I can find one. Watch for these lows across here. Trust me to use the wrong one, but it doesn't really matter too much. But you see from these, it's not drawn on there at all well. May have to redo that. Let me get the right one as well. There we go. Somewhere around there. Watch for this in terms of support. But at the moment, as I say, I'm erring more. I'd like to have seen it today run into that weekly pivot, and I think that may still give me an opportunity, if it does, to be considering short side, the short side back to the 21. In terms of sentiment, let's just look at the sentiment on the Canadian dollar. And the Canadian dollar still pretty negative sentiment there. It's eased off as we've come up on the price here a little bit. Maybe it is switching the other way, and it may have some more upside. As I said, I was looking short term for the weekly pivot there as a sell point. If it was to break that, well, then that takes my sort of bigger picture break of the highs there, and for a more upside there. Okay, so all in all, as I say, really two key numbers to be watching this week: the inflation data for the US and the retail sales US. There's not a lot, well, UK budget may be 11:30 on Tuesday. Not a lot of other really significant or any potential big changes sitting there. So that's it for me. Have a great one. Bye for now.